He was old, very tall, and his features reminded Case of the girl he had glimpsed in the restaurant. He wore a heavy robe of maroon silk, quilted around the long cuffs and shawl collar. One foot was bare, the other in a black velvet slipper with an embroidered gold fox head over the instep. He motioned her into the room. "Slow, darling," he said. "It would be customary," the old man said, "for me to kill you now." Case felt her tense, ready for a move. "But tonight I indulge myself. What is your name?" "Molly." "Molly. Mine is Ashpool." He sank back into the creased softness of a huge leather armchair with square chrome legs, but the gun never wavered. He put her Fletcher on a brass table beside the chair, knocking over a plastic vial of red pills. The table was thick with vials, bottles of liquor, soft plastic envelopes spilling white powders. Case noticed an old-fashioned glass hypodermic and a plain steel spoon. "How do you cry, Molly? I see your eyes are walled away. I'm curious." His eyes were red-rimmed, his forehead gleaming with sweat. "I spit," she said. "The ducts are rooted back into my mouth." "Then you've already learned an important lesson for one so young." He rested the hand with the pistol on his knee and took a bottle from the table beside him. Without bothering to choose from the half-dozen different liquors, he drank brandy. A trickle of the stuff ran from the corner of his mouth. "That is the way to handle tears." He drank again. "I'm busy tonight, Molly. I built all this, and now I'm busy. Dying." "I could go out the way I came," she said. He laughed, a harsh, high sound. "You intrude on my suicide and then ask to simply walk out? Really, you amaze me. A thief." "It's my ass, boss, and it's all I got. I just want to get out of here in one piece." "You are a very rude girl. Suicides here are conducted with a degree of decorum. That's what I'm doing, you understand. But perhaps I'll take you with me tonight, down to hell. It would be very Egyptian of me." He drank again. "Come here, then." He held out the bottle, his hand shaking. "Drink." She shook her head. "It isn't poisoned," he said, but returned the brandy to the table. Sit on the floor. We'll talk." "What about?" She sat. Case felt the blades move very slightly beneath her nails. "Whatever comes to mind. My mind. It's my party. The Corps woke me 20 hours ago. Something was afoot, they said, and I was needed. Were you the something, Molly? Surely they didn't need me to handle you, no. Something else. But I'd been dreaming, you see, for 30 years. You weren't born when last I lay me down to sleep. They told us we wouldn't dream in that cold. Madness, Molly. Lies. Of course I dreamed. I'm old, Molly, over 200 years if you count the cold." The barrel of the pistol snapped up suddenly, quivering. The tendons of her thighs were drawn tight as wires now. "You can get freezer burn," she said carefully. "Nothing burns there," he said impatiently, lowering the gun. His few movements were increasingly sclerotic. His head nodded. "Nothing burns. I remember now. The Corps told me our intelligences are mad, and all the billions we paid so long ago, when artificial intelligences were rather a racy concept. I told the Corps I'd deal with it. Bad timing, really, with 8 Gene down in Melbourne and only our sweet 3 Jane minding the store. Or very good timing, perhaps. Would you know, Molly?" The gun rose again. "There are some odd things afoot now in the Villa Straylight." "Boss," she asked him, "you know Wintermute?" "A name, yes. To conjure with, perhaps. A lord of hell, surely. In my time, dear Molly, I have known many lords, and not a few ladies. Why, a queen of Spain once in that very bed. But I wander." He coughed wetly, the muzzle of the pistol jerking as he convulsed. He spat on the carpet near his one bare foot. "How I do wander, through the cold, but soon no more. I'd ordered a Jane thawed when I woke. Strange to lie every few decades with what legally amounts to one's own daughter." His gaze swept past her to the rack of blank monitors. He seemed to shiver. Marie France's eyes, he said faintly, and smiled. We caused the brain to become allergic to certain of its own neurotransmitters, resulting in a peculiarly pliable imitation of autism. His head swayed sideways, recovered. I understand that the effect is now more easily obtained with an embedded microchip. The pistol slid from his fingers, bounced on the carpet. The dreams grow like slow ice, he said. His face was tinged with blue. His head sank back into the waiting leather, and he began to snore. Up, she snatched the gun. She stalked the room, Ashpool's automatic in her hand. A vast quilt or comforter was heaped beside the bed in a broad puddle of congealed blood, thick and shiny on the patterned rugs. Twitching a corner of the quilt back, she found the body of a girl, white shoulder blades slick with blood. Her throat had been slit. The triangular blade of some sort of scraper glinted in the dark pool beside her. Molly knelt, careful to avoid the blood, and turned the dead girl's face to the light. The face Case had seen in the restaurant. There was a click deep at the very center of things, and the world was frozen. Molly's SimStim broadcast had become a still frame, her fingers on the girl's cheek. The freeze held for 3 seconds, and then the dead face was altered, became the face of Linda Lee. Another click, and the room blurred. Molly was standing, looking down at a golden laser disc beside a small console on the marble top of a bedside table. A length of fiber-optic ribbon ran like a leash from the console to a socket at the base of the slender neck. "I got your number, fucker," Case said, feeling his own lips moving somewhere far away. He knew that Wintermute had altered the broadcast. Molly hadn't seen the dead girl's face swirl like smoke to take on the outline of Linda's death mask. Molly turned. She crossed the room to Ashpool's chair. The man's breathing was slow and ragged. She peered at the litter of drugs and alcohol. She put his pistol down, picked up her Fletcher, dialed the barrel over to single shot, and very carefully put a toxin dart through the center of his closed left eyelid. He jerked once, breath halting in mid-intake. His other eye, brown and fathomless, opened slowly. It was still open when she turned and left the room. "I got your boss on hold," the flatline said. "He's coming through on the twin Hosaka in that boat upstairs, the one that's riding us piggyback, called the Hanaiwa." "I know," Case said absently. "I saw it." A lozenge of white light clicked into place in front of him, hiding the Tessier Ashpool ice. It showed him the calm, perfectly focused, utterly crazed face of Armitage, his eyes blank as buttons. Armitage blinked, stared. "Guess Wintermute took care of your tourings too, huh? Like he took care of mine," Case said. Armitage stared. Case resisted the sudden urge to look away, drop his gaze. "You okay, Armitage?" "Case." And for an instant something seemed to move behind the blue stare. "You've seen Wintermute, haven't you, in the Matrix?" Case nodded. A camera on the face of his Osaka and Marcus Garvey would relay the gesture to the Hanaiwa monitor. He imagined Malcolm listening to his tranced half-conversations, unable to hear the voices of the construct or Armitage. "Case?" And the eyes grew larger, Armitage leaning toward his computer. "What is he, when you see him?" "He's a high-res SimStim construct," Case said. "But who?" "Well, Finn the last time. Not General Gerling?" "General who?" The lozenge went blank. "Run that back and get the Hosaka to look it up," he told the construct. He flipped. The perspective startled him. Molly was crouching between steel girders 20 meters above a broad, stained floor of polished concrete. The room was a hangar or service bay. He could see 3 spacecraft, none larger than Garvey and all in various stages of repair. A figure in an orange jumpsuit stepped from a gap in the hull of a bulbous construction vehicle and stood beside one of the thing's piston-driven, weirdly anthropomorphic arms. "Case," flashed her chip. "Hey," she said, waiting for a guide. She settled back on her haunches, the arms and knees of her modern suit the color of the blue-gray paint on the girders. Her leg hurt, a sharp, steady pain now. I should have gone back to Chin, she muttered. Something came ticking quietly out of the shadows on a level with her left shoulder. It paused, swayed its spherical body from side to side on high-arched spider legs, fired a microsecond burst of diffuse laser light, and froze. It was a Braun micro-drone, and Case had once owned the same model, a pointless accessory he had obtained as part of a package deal with a Cleveland hardware fence. It looked like a stylized matte black daddy longlegs. A red LED began to pulse at the sphere's equator. Its body was no larger than a baseball. "Okay," she said, "I hear you." She stood up, favoring her left leg, and watched the little drone reverse. It picked its methodical way back across its girder and into darkness. She turned and looked back at the service area. The man in the orange jumpsuit was sealing the front of a white vacuum rig. Then she was off after the Braun, threading her way between a forest of welded steel struts. The Braun winked its LED steadily, beckoning her on. "How you doing, Case? You back in Garvey with Malcolm?" "Sure, and jacked into this. I like it, you know, like I've always talked to myself in my head when I've been in tight spots. Pretend I got some friend, somebody I can trust, and I'll tell them what I really think, what I feel like, and then I'll pretend they're telling me what they think about that, and I'll just go along that way. Having you in is kind of like that. That scene with Ashpool." She gnawed at her lower lip, swinging around a strut, keeping the drone in sight. "I was expecting something maybe a little less gone, you know. I mean, these guys are all batshit in here, like they got luminous messages scrawled across the inside of their foreheads or something. I don't like the way it looks. I don't like the way it smells." The drone was hoisting itself up a nearly invisible ladder of U-shaped steel rungs toward a narrow, dark opening. "And while I'm feeling confessional, baby, I gotta admit maybe I never much expected to make it out of this one anyway. Been on this bad roll for a while, and you're the only good change come down since I signed on with Armitage." She looked up at the black circle. The drone's LED winked, climbing. "Not that you're all that shit-hot." She smiled, but it was gone too quickly, and she gritted her teeth at the stabbing pain in her leg as she began to climb. The ladder continued up through a metal tube, barely wide enough for her shoulders. She was climbing up out of gravity toward the weightless axis. Her chip pulsed the time, 04:23:04. It had been a long day. The clarity of her sensorium cut the bite of the beta-phenylethylamine, but Case could still feel it. He preferred the pain in her leg. "Case, I guess it's for you," she said, climbing mechanically. The readout strobed again, and a message stuttered there in the corner of her vision. It said, "General Girling trained Corto for Screaming Fist and sold his ass to the Pentagon. Wintermute's primary grip on Armitage's construct of Girling. Wintermute says Armitage's mention of Girling means he's cracking. Watch your ass. Dixie." "Well," she said, pausing, taking all of her weight on her right leg, "guess you got problems, too." She looked down. There was a faint circle of light no larger than the brass round of the chub key that dangled between her breasts. She looked up. Nothing at all. She tongued her amps, and the tube rose into vanishing perspective, the Braun picking its way up the rungs. "Nobody told me about this part," she said. Case jacked out. "Malcolm," he said, "Man, you boss man, gone ver strange." The Zionite was wearing a blue Sanyo vacuum suit 20 years older than the one Case had rented in Freeside, its helmet under his arm and his dreadlocks bagged in a net cap crocheted from purple cotton yarn. His eyes were slitted with ganja and tension. "Keep callin' down here we orders, man, but be some Babylon war." Malcolm shook his head. "Errol and I talkin', and Errol talkin' with Zion founder say cut and run, man." He ran the back of a large brown hand across his mouth. "Armitage?" Case winced as the beta-phenylethylamine hangover hit him with its full intensity, unscreened by the matrix or SimStim. brain's got no nerves in it, he told himself. It can't really feel this bad. What do you mean, man? He's giving you orders? What? Man, Armitage, he telling me set course for Finland, you know? He telling me there be hope, you know? Come on my screen with his shirt all blood, man, and be crazy as some dog, talking screaming fists and Russian, and the blood of the betrayers be on our hands. He shook his head again, the dread cap swaying and bobbing in 0G, his lips narrowed. Founders said a mute voice be false prophet surely, and Errol and I must abandon Marcus Garvey and return. Okay, Case said, so what about me? You're going home. What about me, Malcolm? Man, Malcolm said, you comin' with me, I and I come Zion wi Errol, Babylon rocker, leave Mr. Armitage to talk with Ghost Cassette, one ghost another. Case glanced over his shoulder. His rented suit swung against the hammock where he'd snapped it. He closed his eyes. He saw the sacks of toxin dissolving in his arteries. He saw Molly hauling herself up the endless steel rungs. He opened his eyes. She's inside, he said. Molly's inside, and Straylight it's called. If there's any Babylon, man, that's it. We leave on her, she ain't coming out, steppin' razor or not. She your woman, Case? I don't know, Case said. Nobody's woman, maybe. He shrugged and found his anger again, real as a shard of hot rock beneath his ribs. Fuck this, he said. Fuck Armitage, fuck Wintermute, and fuck you. I'm staying right here. Malcolm's smile spread across his face like light breaking. Malcolm, a rude boy, Case. Garvey Malcolm boat. His gloved hand slapped the panel, and the bass-heavy rock-steady of Zion Dub came pulsing from the tug's speakers. Malcolm not running, no. I talk wi Errol. He's certain to see it in similar light. Case stared. I don't understand you guys at all, Case said. Don't stun you, man, the Zionite said, nodding to the beat. But we must move by jaw love, each one. Case jacked in and flipped for the matrix. Get my wire? Yeah. He saw that the Chinese program had grown. Delicate arches of shifting polychrome were nearing the TA ice. Well, it's getting stickier, the flatline said. Your boss wiped the bank on that other Hosaka and damn near took ours with it. But your pal Wintermute put me onto something there before it went black. The reason Straylight's not exactly hopping with Tessie or Ashpools is that they're mostly in cold sleep. There's a law firm in London keeps track of their powers of attorney. Has to know who's awake and exactly when. Armitage was routing the transmissions from London to Straylight through the Hosaka on the yacht. Incidentally, they know the old man's dead. Who knows? Case asked. The law firm and TA. He had a medical remote planted in his sternum. Not that your girl's dart would have left a resurrection crew with much to work with. Shellfish toxin. But the only TA awake in Straylight right now is Lady 3 Jane Mary France. There's a male, a couple of years older, in Australia on business. You ask me, I bet Wintermute found a way to cause that business to need this 8 genes personal attention. But he's on his way home, or near his matters. The London lawyers give his Straylight ETA as 0900 tonight. Best estimate for Quang penetration of the TA core is 0830. I figure Wintermute's got something going with this 3 Jane, or else she's just as crazy as her old man was. But the boy up from Melbourne will know the score. The Straylight security systems keep trying to go full alert, but Wintermute blocks them. Don't ask me how. Couldn't override the basic gate program to get Molly in, though. Armitage had a record of all that on his Hosaka. Riviera must have talked 3 Jane into doing it. She's been able to fiddle entrances and exits for years. Looks to me like one of the TA's main problems is that every family bigwig has fiddled the banks with all kinds of private seams and exceptions. Kind of like your immune system falling apart on you. Ripe for virus. Looks good for us once we're past that ice. Okay, but Wintermute said that Armitage... A white lozenge snapped into position, filled with a close-up of mad blue eyes. Case could only stare. Colonel Willis Corto, Special Forces, Strike Force Screaming Fist, had found his way back. The image was dim, jerky, badly focused. Corto was using the Hanaiwa's navigation deck to link with the Hosaka and Marcus Garvey. Case, I need the damage reports on Omaha Thunder. Say, Colonel? Hang in there, boy, Armitage said. Remember your training. But where have you been? Case silently asked the anguished eyes. Wintermute had built something called Armitage into a catatonic fortress named Corto, had convinced Corto that Armitage was the real thing, and Armitage had walked, talked, schemed, bartered data for capital, fronted for Wintermute in that room in the Chiba Hilton. And now Armitage was gone, blown away by the winds of Corto's madness. But where had Corto been all those years? Falling, burned, and blinded out of a Siberian sky? Case, this will be difficult for you to accept, I know that. You're an officer. The training, I understand. But Case, as God is my witness, we have been betrayed. Tears started from the blue eyes. Colonel, who's betrayed us? General Girling, Case. You may know him by a code name. You do know the man of whom I speak. Yeah, Case said. I guess I do. Sir, he added on impulse. But, sir, Colonel, what exactly should we do? Now, I mean. Our duty at this point, Case, lies in flight, escape, evasion. We can make the Finnish border, nightfall tomorrow, treetop flying on manual, seat of the pants, boy. But that will only be the beginning. The blue eyes slitted above tan cheekbones slick with tears. Only the beginning. Betrayal. From above. From above. He stepped back from the camera, dark stains on his torn twill shirt. Armitage's face had been mask-like, impassive, but Corto's was the true schizoid mask, illness etched deep in involuntary muscle, distorting the expensive surgery. Colonel, Kay said, I hear you, man. Listen, Colonel, okay? I want you to open the, what's it called, Dix? The mid-bay lock, the flatline said. Open the mid-bay lock, Colonel. Just tell your central console there to open it, right? We'll be up there with you fast, Colonel. Then we can talk about getting out of here. The lozenge vanished. Boy, I think you just lost me there, the flatline said. The toxins, Case said. The fucking toxins. And jacked out. Poison? Malcolm watched over the scratched blue shoulder of his old Sanyo as Case struggled out of the G-web. It's like a slow poison, Case said, and that asshole upstairs knows how to counter it. And now he's crazier than a shithouse rat. He fumbled with the front of the red Sanyo, forgetting how to work the seals. Boss man, he poisoned you? Malcolm scratched his cheek. Got a medical kit, you know. Malcolm, Christ, help me with this goddamn suit. The Zionite kicked off from the pink pilot module. Easy, man. Measure twice, cut once, wise men put it. Case, with one glove braced against the hatch, felt the vibration of the lock mechanism through his suit and bones. The round segment of gray hull began to withdraw into the side of Hanaiwa. Malcolm grabbed the recess with one hand and Case with the other. The lock took them with it. When Malcolm removed his battered helmet, Case followed his lead. They hung there in the lock, breathing air that smelled faintly of pine. Under it, a disturbing edge of burning insulation. Malcolm sniffed. Trouble here, man. Any boat you smell that. A door, padded with dark gray ultrasuede, slid smoothly back into its housing. From somewhere ahead, Case made out the familiar chatter of a printer turning out hard copy. It grew louder as he followed Malcolm through another doorway, into a swirling mass of tangled printout. Case snatched a length of twisted paper and glanced at it. System crash? Malcolm asked. The Zionite flicked a gloved finger at the column of zeros. No, Case said, grabbing for his drifting helmet. The flatline said Armitage wiped the Hosaka he had in there. Smell like he wipe 'em with laser, you know. The Zionite braced his foot against the white cage of a Swiss exercise machine and shot through the floating maze of paper, batting it away from his face. Case, man. The man was small, Japanese, his throat bound to the back of the narrow, articulated chair with a length of some sort of fine steel wire. The wire was invisible where it crossed the black temper foam of the headrest, and it had cut as deeply into his larynx. A single sphere of dark blood had congealed there like some strange precious stone, a red-black pearl. Case saw the crude wooden handles that drifted at either end of the garrote, like worn sections of broom handle. "Wonder how long he had that on him," Case said, remembering Cordo's post-war pilgrimage. "He know how pilot boat, Case, boss man?" "Maybe. He was special forces." "Well," Malcolm said, "this Japan boy, he not be pilotin'. Doubt I pilot her easy myself. Ver new boat. So find us the bridge, man." Malcolm frowned, rolled backwards, and kicked. Case followed him into a larger space, a kind of lounge, shredding and crumpling the links of printout that snared him in his passage. There were more of the articulated chairs here, something that resembled a bar, and the Hosaka. The printer, still spewing its flimsy tongue of paper, was an inbuilt bulkhead unit, a neat slot in a panel of hand-rubbed veneer. He pulled himself over the circle of chairs and reached it, punching a white stud to the left of the slot. The chattering stopped. He turned and stared at the Hosaka. Its face had been drilled through at least a dozen times. The holes were small, circular, edges blackened. Tiny spheres of bright alloy were orbiting the dead computer. "Good guess," he said to Malcolm. "Bridge locked, man," Malcolm said from the opposite side of the lounge. The lights dimmed, surged, dimmed again. Case ripped the printout from its slot. More zeros. "Wintermute?" He looked around the beige and brown lounge, the space scrawled with drifting curves of paper. "That you on the lights, Wintermute?" A panel beside Malcolm's head slid up, revealing a small monitor. Malcolm jerked apprehensively, wiped sweat from his forehead with a foam patch on the back of a gloved hand, and swung to study the display. "You read Japanese, man?" Case could see figures blinking past on the screen. "No," Case said. "Bridge is escape pod. Lifeboat. Counting down, looks like it. Suit up now." Malcolm ringed his helmet and slapped at the seals. "What? He's taken off? Shit!" Case kicked off from the bulkhead and shot through the tangle of printout. "We gotta open this door, man." But Malcolm could only tap the side of his helmet. Case could see his lips moving through the Lexan. He saw a bead of sweat arc out from the rainbow-braided band of the purple cotton net the Zionite wore over his locks. Malcolm snatched the helmet from Case and ringed it for him smoothly, the palms of his gloves smacking the seals. Micro-LED monitors lit as the neck ring connections closed. He tapped a particular line on the screen. "Seals not intact. Bridge module. Launching relock. Open." "Armitage." Case tried to pound on the door. The physics of zero-G sent him tumbling back through the printout. "Corto, don't do it. We gotta talk. We gotta." "Case." "Read you, Case." The voice barely resembled Armitage's now. It held a weird calm. Case stopped kicking. His helmet struck the far wall. "I'm sorry, Case, but it has to be this way. One of us has to get out. One of us has to testify. If we all go down here, it ends here. I'll tell them, Case. I'll tell them all of it. About Girling and the others. And I'll make it, Case. I know I'll make it. To Helsinki." There was a sudden silence. Case felt it fill his helmet like some rare gas. "But it's so hard, Case. So goddamned hard. I'm blind." "Cordo, stop. Wait, you're blind, man. You can't fight. You'll hit the fucking trees. And they're trying to get you, Cordo, I swear to God. They've left your hatch open. You'll die, and you'll never get to tell them, and I gotta get the enzyme. Name of the enzyme. The enzyme, man." He was shouting, voice high with hysteria, feedback shrilled out of his helmet's phone pads. "Remember the training, Case. That's all we can do." And then the helmet filled with a confused babble, roaring static, harmonics howling down the years from Screaming Fist, fragments of Russian, and then a stranger's voice, Midwestern, very young. We are down, repeat. Omaha thunder is down. Wintermute, Case screamed. Don't do this to me. Tears broke from his lashes, rebounding off the faceplate in wobbling crystal droplets. Then Haniwa thudded once, shivered as if some huge, soft thing had struck her hull. Case imagined the lifeboat jolting free, blown clear by explosive bolts, a second's clawing hurricane of escaping air tearing mad Colonel Corto from his couch, from Wintermute's rendition of the final minute of Screaming Fist. Gone, man. Malcolm looked at the monitor. Hatch open. Mute must override ejection failsafe. Case tried to wipe the tears of rage from his eyes. His fingers clacked against Lexan. Yacht, she tied for air, but Bossman taking grapple control with bridge. Marcus Garvey still stuck. But Case was seeing Armitage's endless fall around Freeside, through vacuum colder than the steppes. For some reason, he imagined him in his dark Burberry, the trench coat's rich folds spread out around him like the wings of some huge bat. Get what you went for? The construct asked. Quang grade Mark 11 was filling the grid between itself and the TA ice with hypnotically intricate traceries of rainbow, lattices fine as snow crystal on a winter window. Wintermute killed Armitage, Case said, blew him out in a lifeboat with a hatch open. He knew how to unbond the toxin sacks, Case said. So Wintermute knows too, Dixie said. Count on it. I don't exactly trust Wintermute to give it to me, Case said. 06-27-52 by the chip in her optic nerve. Case had been following her progress through Villa Straylight for over an hour, letting the endorphin analog she'd taken blot out his hangover. The pain in her leg was gone. She seemed to move through a warm bath. The Braun drone was perched on her shoulder, its tiny manipulators like padded surgical clips, secure in the polycarbon of the modern suit. The walls here were raw steel, striped with rough brown ribbons of epoxy, where some kind of covering had been ripped away. She had hidden from a work crew, crouching, the Fletcher cradled in her hands, her suit steel gray, while the two slender Africans in their balloon-tired work cart passed. The men had shaven heads and worn orange overalls. One was singing softly to himself in a language Case had never heard, the tones and melody alien and haunting. The head's speech, 3 Jane's essay on Straylight, came back to him as she worked her way deeper into the maze of the place. Straylight was crazy. Was craziness grown in the resin concrete they'd mixed from pulverized lunar stone? Grown in welded steel and the tons of knickknacks, all the bizarre impedimenta they'd shipped up the well to line their winding nest. But it wasn't a craziness he understood, not like Armitage's madness, which he now imagined he could understand. Twist the man far enough, then twist him as far back in the opposite direction, reverse and twist again. The man broke, like breaking a length of wire. He thought of the toxin sacks. Old Ashpool was dead too, drilled through the eye with Molly's microscopic dart, deprived of whatever expert overdose he'd mixed for himself. That was a more puzzling death, Ashpool's, the death of a mad king, and he'd killed the puppet he'd called his daughter, the one with 3 Jane's face. The Braun plucked at the hood of the modern suit, and Molly turned left through another archway. Wonder where our Peter is now, huh? Maybe see that boy soon, Molly muttered. And Armitage, where's he, Case? Dead, Case said, knowing she couldn't hear him. He's dead. He flipped. The Chinese program was face-to-face with the target ice, rainbow tints gradually dominated by the green of the rectangle representing the TA cores, arches of emerald across the colorless void. How's it going, Dixie? Fine, the flatline said. Too slick. Things amazing. Should have had one that time in Singapore. Did the old new Bank of Asia for a good 50th of what they were worth. But that's ancient history. This baby takes all the drudgery out of it. Makes you wonder what a real war would be like now. If this kind of shit was on the street, Case said, we'd be out of a job. You wish, the flatline said. Wait till you're steering that thing upstairs through black ice. Sure, Case said. Something small and decidedly non-geometric had just appeared on the far end of one of the emerald arches. Dixie? Yeah, the flatline said. I see it. Don't know if I believe it. A brownish dot, a dull gnat against the green wall of the TA cores. It began to advance across the bridge built by Quang Grade Mark 11, and Case saw that it was walking. As it came, the green section of the arch extended, the polychrome of the virus program rolling back, a few steps ahead of the cracked black shoes. Gotta hand it to you, boss, the flatline said, when the short, rumpled figure of the Finn seemed to stand a few meters away. I never seen anything this funny when I was alive. I never tried it before, the Finn said, showing his teeth, his hands bunched in the pockets of his frayed jacket. You killed Armitage, Case said. Corto, yeah, Armitage was already gone. Had to do it. I know, you want to get the enzyme. Okay, no sweat. I was the one gave it to Armitage in the first place. I mean, I told him what to use. But I think maybe it's better to let the deal stand. You got enough time. I'll give it to you. Only a couple of hours now, right? Case watched blue smoke billow in cyberspace as the Finn lit one of his Partagas. You guys, the Finn said, you're a pain. The flatline here, if you were all like him, it would be real simple. He's a construct, just a bunch of ROM, so he always does what I expect him to. My projection said there wasn't much chance of Molly wandering in on Ashpool's big exit scene. To give you one example, he sighed. Why'd he kill himself? Case asked. Why's anybody kill himself? The figure shrugged. He was ready to do it for a long time, but he kept going back into the freezer. Christ, he was a tedious old fuck. The Finn's face wrinkled with disgust. It's all tied in with why he killed his wife mainly. You want the short reason. But what sent him over the edge for good and all, little 3Jane figured a way to fiddle the program that controlled his cryogenic system. Subtle, too. So basically, she killed him, except he figured he'd killed himself. And your friend, the avenging angel, figures she got him with an eyeball full of shellfish juice. The Finn flicked his butt away into the matrix below. Well, actually, I guess I did give 3Jane the odd hint. A little of the old how-to, you know? Wintermute, Case said. You told me you were just a part of something else. Later on, you said you wouldn't exist if the run goes off and Molly gets the word into the right slot. The Finn's streamlined skull nodded. Okay, Case said. Then who we gonna be dealing with then? If Armitage is dead and you're gonna be gone, just who exactly is going to tell me how to get these fucking toxin sacks out of my system? Who's gonna get Molly back out of there? I mean, where? Where exactly are all our asses gonna be? We cut you loose from the hardwiring. The Finn took a wooden toothpick from his pocket and regarded it critically, like a surgeon examining a scalpel. Good question, he said finally. You know salmon, kind of fish? These fish, see, they're compelled to swim upstream. Got it? No, Case said. Well, the Finn said, I'm under compulsion myself, and I don't know why, but when this is over, we do it right. I'm going to be part of something bigger, much bigger. The Finn glanced up and around the matrix, but the parts of me that are me now, that'll still be here, and you'll get your payoff. Well, Good luck, the Finn said. He turned, hands in pockets, and began trudging back up the green arch. Hey, asshole, the flatline said when the Finn had gone a dozen paces. The figure paused, half-turned. What about me? What about my payoff? You'll get yours, it said. What's that mean? Case asked as he watched the narrow tweed back recede. I want to be erased, the construct said. I told you that, remember? Molly had slowed now, either knowing that she was nearing her goal or out of concern for her leg. The pain was starting to work its jagged way back through the endorphins, and he wasn't sure what that meant. She didn't speak, kept her teeth clenched, and carefully regulated her breathing. She'd passed many things that Case hadn't understood, but his curiosity was gone. There had been a room filled with shelves of books, a million flat leaves of yellowing paper pressed between bindings of cloth or leather, the shelves marked at intervals by labels that followed a code of letters and numbers. A crowded gallery where Case had stared, through Molly's incurious eyes, at a shattered, dust-stenciled sheet of glass. She'd reached out and touched this, her artificial nails clicking against the Lexan sandwich protecting the broken glass. There had been what was obviously the entrance to Tessier Ashpool's cryogenic compound, circular doors of black glass trimmed with chrome. She'd seen no one since the two Africans and their cart, and for Case they had taken on a sort of imaginary life. He pictured them gliding gently through the halls of Straylight, their smooth, dark skulls gleaming, nodding, while the one still sang his tired little song. 07:02:18, 1.5 hours. Case, she said, I want a favor. Stiffly, she lowered herself to sit on a stack of polished steel plates, the finish of each plate protected by an uneven coat of clear plastic. Leg's not good, you know. Didn't figure any climb like that, and the endorphin won't cut it much longer. So maybe, just maybe, right, I got a problem here. What it is, if I buy it here before Riviera does, and she stretched her leg, kneaded the flesh of her thigh through modern polycarbon and Paris leather, I want you to tell him. Tell him it was me, got it? Just say it was Molly. He'll know, okay? She glanced around the empty hallway, the bare walls. Shit, man, I don't even know if you're listening. Case, it winked in her eye. She winced, got to her feet, nodded. What's he told you, man? Wintermute. He tell you about Marie France? She was the Tessier half, 3 Jane's genetic mother. And of that dead puppet of Ashpool's, I guess. Can't figure why he'd tell me down in that cubicle. Lot of stuff. Why he has to come on like the Finn or somebody, he told me that. It's not just a mask, it's like he uses real profiles as valves, gears himself down to communicate with us, called it a template, model of personality. She drew her Fletcher and limped away down the corridor. The bare steel and scabrous epoxy ended abruptly, replaced by what Case at first took to be a rough tunnel blasted from solid rock. Molly examined its edges, and he saw that in fact the steel was sheathed with panels of something that looked and felt like cold stone. She knelt and touched the dark sand spread across the floor of the imitation tunnel. It felt like sand, cool and dry, but when she drew her finger through it, it closed like a fluid, leaving the surface undisturbed. Something scurried between her legs and went ticking across the unsand of the floor. A red LED blinked, the brawn. She drew the Fletcher from its holster, snapped the plastic magazine out, pocketed that, and replaced it with another. She hooked her thumb in the neck of the modern suit and ripped it open to the crotch with a single gesture, her thumb blade parting the tough polycarbon like rotten silk. She freed herself from the arms and legs, the shredded remnants disguising themselves as they fell to the dark false sand. Case noticed the music then, a music he didn't know, all horns and piano. The entrance to 3 Jane's world had no door. It was a ragged 5-meter gash in the tunnel wall, uneven stairs leading down in a broad, shallow curve, faint blue light, moving shadows, music. "Case," she said and paused, the Fletcher in her right hand. Then she raised her left, smiled, touched her open palm with a wet tongue tip, kissing him through the sim-stem link. "Gotta go." Then there was something small and heavy in her left hand, her thumb against a tiny stud, and she was descending.
This book is continued on the last cassette.